Hello and
Hello.
welcome back to
thanks.
the Triforce podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Triforce podcast.
Oh man,
That'll be the future, by the way.
Yes.
You know, either when we're old men,
robotized. We get robots to do it.
we'll have like robot assistants to speak for us.
yeah.
Podcast bot, take over for me today. I'm feeling old.
Yeah.
I will fill for you. I'm sure we've spoken about this before. Consulting databanks. Yep, we did.
What do you think about baked beans on toast? It's gonna be some terrible,
bullshit.
like fucking like crappy conversation topic.
I think it's
Icebreaker.
fascinating that machine
Loading
learning
icebreakers.exe. Have you seen that new television show?
The Apprentice. Let's have a catch up. No, let's not.
That's my
Override.
kind of robot.
Yeah.
Jeez. Gosh.
Override.
No,
the three
subscribe.
bots have a different like algorithm on them.
Yeah, they don't want certain things. That does not fulfill my criteria for discussion. That fulfills mine. They become like Daleks.
man.
I subscribe to a few of those machine learning bots on Twitter. The neural sort of image prediction and stuff like that. And
The fuck?
they're so far off. Like it's really, it's like the computer's best guess is almost always just hilariously wrong. There's one account where it just gives like meme images to the bot, the image recognition bot, and it's like a turtle, and it's like a guy with a weird hat. You know, it just can't tell. It's just not there yet. But it's all time. It'll just take time. But
Well, yeah.
lads,
We'll
I
perfect
did
it.
something cool. I went to a gig yesterday, my first gig in
Hey,
several years.
I saw the picture that you posted on Twitter, and it looked fantastic. Holy crap! Like,
Yeah, I mean,
the
the
last
round-
gig I went to did not look like that.
the Roundhouse is a great venue. It really is. It is like a big circular
Yeah, it
arena
looks
with the stage
awesome.
in the middle.
Yeah.
We were in the seats. It was Babby Flex's first gig. It was Everything is the band. We're both big fans of the band, and they were superb. They were absolutely superb.
Nice.
But you know what's funny? You know when bands do an encore,
Mhm.
and I think traditionally the encore, the idea of it is they say thank you and good night, God bless everybody, have a safe travels home, and make sure that you haven't left anything in the arena and all that kind of stuff. And you think, oof, and then they go, and you think they ain't coming back. But the moment they're off the stage, the sound technicians are back. And they're like tweaking the bass and the guitar and getting everything ready. And I'm like, so they know they're coming back out. My daughter was like, so are they coming back out? I said, yes. And from where we were sat, you could see around the back of the stage. So we see them leave the stage, go into the backstage area, have a little drink of water, and they're having a chat there and stuff.
Do a little bit of cocaine. and,
Right. I
you know.
assume go to the toilet.
Yeah.
But it's like, why call it an encore?
Yeah.
Like, why do we do this? And I was
It's
trying to
just a break,
explain it
right?
to her.
It's just a
It's
little
weird. It's weird. But I mean, they could have just said, right, we'll be back in a minute. And we all know they're coming back.
Man, you could have.
So-
Just think, like, if you could go in a time machine, you could have gone back in time. Okay, like I know that sounds crazy, but okay, you go back in time with your
Right.
daughter to the '90s, and you go to a Nirvana show. Man, they used to just smash up all their shit at the end of that 45-minute set. No
Right.
encores. Like
Yeah,
they weren't
that's
coming
how
back.
you know.
They were just
We
like, we're done.
cannot come back. We
Yeah.
are not and cannot come
I've
back.
trashed my guitar. It doesn't work anymore. The drum
Right.
kit has holes in it. Like, we're done. We're out.
Yeah.
What are the other ways that you could announce that you're done in such a kind of like serious way? I guess you could like take a shit on the stage. Like, I mean, there's like this weird shit you could do that like ruins it.
There is.
Yeah.
I mean,
You could,
generally,
like-
what you see is if there is genuinely no encore, which happens a bunch,
Yeah.
they play all their music, the house lights come up, and everybody starts packing up. And you go, okay, they're done.
Oh my god, when the house lights come up, everybody just
Oh,
looks
God.
like shit, don't
That's
they?
Yeah.
right.
It's like when you're out clubbing and it's all dark and they got the smoke machine and the lasers and stuff. Last time I went clubbing was like in the 90s, but
Right. I'm sure it's the same.
I'm sure it's kind of the same still. But like 2 a.m. rolls around and it's like, all right, everybody, time to go home. The lights come up and you're just like, oh my God, I've actually spent an entire evening with lepers. Like it just looks, everybody looks like fucking shit. They're all
Yeah.
sweaty.
Right.
Makeup is all fucking smeared everywhere from all the
It
sweating.
is exactly like one of those like sci-fi shows where someone lives in this beautiful house and then like they realize that it's all like in
It's
their
a
head. They're
prison.
actually just living in like a concrete basement. Yeah, it's like it's just like shit. It's all like, or it's all been artificially like projected around or onto their retina or whatever, so they see this weird thing. There's this machine learning. So, by the way, I know you're a big fan of Stanley Parable, Sibs.
Yeah.
They've been following it a bit over the last couple of years, and they're doing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe,
right,
which is basically Stanley Parable 2. It's kind of got basically, but the thing is, it's not really 2 because it's in the same place.
Right.
Basically, it's got more script than the entire first game, and the whole point of the Stanley Parable is to kind of surprise you and like be a bit like weird and throw you off. And so they've been making these like little articles, like talking and joking and writing about it, and they're so funny. But they've done this little one about using machine learning because it's all the rage. The thing is, Stanley Parable is it's got its finger on the pulse of what is circle jerky, right? In a sense. So like this idea of machine learning and algorithmic automation and stuff is like it's everyone's taking advantage of it and like, oh, I use machine learning to do an ice cream really badly, or there's it's just really, it's the whole thing. So yeah, they've done a few like little scripts that they've rewritten. Do you want to read? Do you want to read any?
Love to.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so I'll post.
You got to do
in
it in the narrator's voice, though.
Okay, well you can do. Well, who can do it the best? Right, here's
you probably. Or no, Flax probably can. Right?
Is this in the Stanley Parable voice?
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me just.
Stanley's office building is not where it is. Yeah, you got to do it like.
Okay, so he goes. Okay. So is this?
So read the one from the original game.
All of Stanley's co-workers were becoming Stanley. Stanley did not know how to do this, so he tried. He could not. This made him sad. Stanley returns to his office, eating ice cream. He is not happy. Stanley soon discovered that the office was in his own mind. The ice cream was in his own mind. The co-workers were in his own mind. Stanley was in his own mind. This made him sad. Stanley thought himself out of thinking and then became everyone. Nobody works in the office anymore. Stanley finishes eating his ice cream. Yeah, so that's the original.
Man. So no, that's the machine learning AI one. Yeah.
Wait. So a machine learning AI came up with that?
Well, no, I think it's a joke though. I think that's written by the guy, the Davey Reedon, who wrote this. He's writing the Stanley Parable. Do you know what I mean? I get the impression this is like a kind of slightly satirical look at it. So yeah, he's written this whole article. You can find it if you look for Stanley Parable.
So this is another one. Stanley could do anything, and he knew it. He could conquer space. He could swallow Germany. Nothing was impossible. The day would be his. Stanley exits his office with confidence. Stanley left his offices and perambulated through space and time until he arrived at a set of 2 open doors. Weird Gary appears. Hello! That's Weird Gary. Stanley and Weird Gary became close friends over the course of many years. They died as they lived, side by side, facing the world together. That's so strange.
It's weird, isn't it? Man, on the subject of Stanley Parable, I've been watching that show Severance, which does have some Stanley Parable vibes to it for sure, right? Like the whole everybody being fucking weirdly cut off at work, and just all the sequences where they're at work are all insane though, right? But like it makes me think about all of the times I've been at work, and you kind of think like, yeah, okay, I wasn't severed to go to work, but sometimes I felt like I was, you know what I mean? Like it's this other world, and it's so fucking weird sometimes, isn't it? Like if you actually stop to think about it, it's a great show.
The things that are important to you at work are, who cares? Like as soon as you're out of work, you really switch into a different person. And I mean, if you've worked some for a while and you've only ever seen those people at work, when you go out like for a party or you go out with some people from work and stuff, they're completely different. You realize how, I think in a way, we all sever ourselves from office work and jobs and stuff.
You kind of do have a different personality at work sometimes. Right. You're just not yourself mostly.
You're more guarded, right? I mean,
you are, of course, but you also are ultra socially, well, most people are ultra socially aware, right? You kind of have to be. Some people are just completely unfiltered, and you wonder how the fuck are they still here?
Gary. That's Weird Gary
exactly.
Right,
but I mean, it's there's lots of, if you think about it, there's just lots of funny sort of things that you can relate back to the real world, where it's not so extreme, but there's still lots of that, right? Like the work that they're doing is just so fucking weird and seems so useless, but there's a lot of jobs out there like that too, right? Where you go in and you're just pushing around paper or whatever, and there's no point to it.
It's true.
Yeah,
I think the really interesting thing to me is, and I'm going to try not to do any spoilers here for Severance. This is just more of an overall concept. I'm sure if you haven't watched it by now, you maybe read an article about it or something, explaining that basically everybody that works in the severed offices of this place, Lumen, has had a voluntary operation on their brain that has an implant that when they pass through a certain part of the office, like a field, it switches their memory so that they cannot remember anything outside of work. They don't know what they do. They don't know if they're married, who their friends are. They know nothing.
Yeah.
And equally, when they leave work, they remember nothing about what happened.
No.
So as the innie and the outie is the regular person who lives on the outside, and the innie is the person that exists in the office. Obviously, you're the same person, but you don't know each other.
No,
at all.
And you
There's
refer
no
to
way
your
to communicate.
You refer to your innie, like when you're not so much. It's more the innies that refer to the outies, right? Like the outies don't really think about the innies that much, like because the choice for them to be severed comes from their outside brain. Yeah. Right, so they know what
the innies are always wondering. What am I like?
But the innies are the ones that are like a loose thread, right? They're like, what the hell? I have no, I don't even remember my name. Like this, what you're calling me might not even be my name. They're aware that they're somewhere weird that they can't really escape from, because the minute they leave the floor of the office that they're working at, that their sort of work brain shuts off, and then their personal brain kicks in. So for them, their next like bit of reality like might be the last thing that they see is the door closed to the elevator for them leaving for the day. And then the next thing they know, the door's just opening again immediately,
and they're leaving.
And they're coming back to work, and they have no concept that they've had any time off, any rest, any sleep, nothing. So they don't know what their outside persona could be doing. Like they could just be doing hard drugs all night long, not sleeping. Right. And then you're just at work the next day thinking, holy crap, I feel like shit. What the hell is going on out there? You know, like it's just, and vice versa too. Because sometimes like they can get injured at work, and then they'll leave and they'll have a note that says like, oh, you
banged into a cupboard. Or
man, it's fascinating. It's such a good concept for a show, and it works.
But it asks loads of questions. I think the biggest one is your innie cannot quit work unless your outie agrees.
Yeah.
So there's no way to communicate that. Your outie would need to say, I want to quit. And your innie would then also need to say it. So you would need to coordinate. It's like almost like one of those prisoner's dilemma things.
Yeah.
You need to coordinate with the other person. And sometimes that's not going to happen.
Yeah. And you got to remember that the outie put you there for a reason, because the outie needs that 8 hours a day of cutoff or whatever.
But they might also just be unbelievably fucking lazy. Like it's very appealing to say, I know I need to work, but I really hate it. So what I'll do is I'll just turn up to work, and whatever happens in there, as far as I'm concerned, for the rest of my life, I've never worked a day. I just lose some hours.
Yeah.
I turn up at work and instantly I'm leaving work.
Yes.
And I still get paid and I'm still doing my job and I might get promoted or whatever. So from the outie's perspective, this is the best job ever, because it doesn't matter how dull it is. Mm-hmm. But you're essentially creating a slave version of yourself who is forced to toil in this place and might be the most miserable person and hate their job and desperate to quit. And you have perpetuated that. So it asks you some really, really fucking deep questions.
It's so interesting. It really is. Like it starts. What starts off as quite a simple, like kind of almost like a metaphor of why don't you just divide your work-life balance? Everyone should have. Make sure you turn off when you go home.
This is like the extreme
kind of
version,
thing,
of that.
Right. But then it kind of very quickly becomes like what happens when you, because it's almost like some sort of animosity. Like you might start hating your other self.
Yeah.
Which is kind of another metaphor for those of you out there who struggle to just love yourself if you can.
I love myself as often as I can.
Well, I know.
That's why my eyesight is so poor.
Oh my god.
But yeah, a really really interesting show with like a lot of big questions too about like.
And well presented too. The just the sort of
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just really nicely shot, like just really well acted. Like it's a really great show.
I love these like moral and ethical questions, you know, about like I feel like there's this thing around dead people that you can't speak ill of the dead. But some of them were cunts, you know, and also like,
yeah, no, you're
some
right.
of them I didn't like anyway at the time. There is this idea though that they can't fight back, right? The dead, they can't defend themselves, and so in a sense, like people often take advantage of that. I mean, it's happened throughout history, you know, in terms of historians and kings or people rewriting history to suit them, you know, depicting the last king as bad or immoral or whatever in order to suit their own, or prop up their own empire or life, and vice versa too, like depicting somebody who was terribly immoral as perfect, you know, and unfailing. And even today we see that with people having these reimagined histories, certainly in terms of people like Mao and some of these people who were not, I'm sure, perfect people.
Mao?
Yeah, Chairman Mao.
Are
you know,
people actually doing that? Like, I think we need to look at him again. You know, it just, I think I could imagine someone who's like, you know, the dead can't defend themselves, as you said. Someone screaming, "Debate me!" at a dead guy is pretty internet, I think. I want to debate Mao. Debate me. Why is he running away? Just fuck. He's dead. He's dead.
Yeah. Mao hasn't posted how he feels about, you know,
he hasn't updated his Facebook in some time. He does.
So maybe he's for the war in Ukraine. You know?
He might be.
Who knows? He's not saying. He's not saying.
Speaking of history, it's the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic.
Holy crap!
Is it?
Yeah, 100 years.
Tragedy.
100 years. You know, I saw a bit on the news, I think, recently, and they are completely and utterly 3D mapping the shit out of this thing.
Out of the Titanic.
The wreckage of the Titanic, because it's been under there so long. Everything is just rapidly now disintegrating. Like they will just lose the wreckage, and it's so hard to get down there and properly explore it and stuff. So they think that if they can do a lot of imaging on it, they can sort of recreate fully in, like, you know, 3D, probably like explorable VR or something like that.
But we know what because there were two more built. Because there was obviously Olympic and the Britannic. Britannic sank in World War II when it got hit by a naval mine, didn't it? And then Olympic carried on for a long, long time, I think, all the way up until around the war, Second World War, when I think it was scrapped eventually. I can't remember what it obviously had a fairly sad end, as most ships do.
Yeah.
You know, there's quite a lot of steel there, and it's usually in large plates, and it's usually quite good to recycle that.
I mean,
into
those
some
other
other
ships
stuff
that you just mentioned did not have a movie made after them, so that's why
I didn't know anything about them.
I think that's why probably people aren't as interested in preserving those wreckages, you know. But
it's quite a sort of interesting story, because they were obviously, most ships aren't made in a vacuum. They're made as, you know, in multiples, you know, as a class. And so it did have other ships that were going before it and after it. I think Titanic was just slightly larger.
Do you want to hear a little bit about the RMS Olympic?
Go on then, read it off the Wikipedia.
It was a British ocean liner and the lead ship of the White Star Line's trio of Olympic-class liners. Unlike the other ships in the... there's one phrase here I really like. I hope you like it too. Okay. Unlike the other ships in the class, Olympic had a career spanning 24 years, from 1911 to 1935. This included service as a troop ship during the First World War, which gained her the nickname Old Reliable. She returned to civilian service after the war and served successfully as an ocean liner throughout the 1920s, and blah, 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 blah. But the Great Depression made her operation increasingly unprofitable, so they had to scrap it. Listen to this. Olympic was the largest ocean liner in the world for two periods during 1910 to 1913, interrupted only by the brief tenure of the slightly larger Titanic. The brief tenure of the Titanic is one way to put it.
It was brief.
Is really nice. The brief tenure of the Titanic. And then it sank and a bunch of people died. So it's kind of sad to just put it as the brief tenure of the slightly larger Titanic. It's a really delicate way of putting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. But she was obviously like looked the same, was the same, had almost the same layout. I think although I think Titanic had a few different things. I think Titanic had like they'd remodeled some stairways inside, and they put that grand stairwell in that you see in the movie. That was quite an iconic bit that was added.
Do you think that the other
others.
ship had a guy named Jake on it who drew his French ladies, like in, or maybe they were like German ladies instead, just like slightly different, just like some slight differences.
It's all just like they just missed an iceberg.
Yeah. It's like the Seinfeld episode where they have like the other
the
group,
other friends,
the other friends that are all kind of the same, but like there's little differences. It's like that.
Wow,
I think so.
There was a lavish grand staircase with 3 lifts, a Georgian-style smoking room, a veranda cafe with palm trees, swimming pool, Turkish baths, gymnasium, and several different places for meals and entertainment.
Man,
that was pretty interesting. Luxury was really the focus of these ships as well. It was it was like the Concorde of the day, for upper class folks to travel slowly back and forth between America and
I feel like nowadays people just buy their own boats, right? Like if you're rich and you're looking for luxury, like you're not really gonna go on a cruise liner, are you? Like you're just gonna get your own yacht, or you're gonna borrow your friend's yacht or something like that, right? Like if you're friends with Jay-Z or like the guy from Microsoft or whatever, and you can just borrow their super yacht or use it for the weekend. Or
I wonder if that happened back in the day. Did these mega rich men, these oil barons and the Rothschilds and these sort of people, did they have their own private like ships that they just with private pilots and they drove them? Like,
I don't know.
Sailed them across for them.
Like maybe I would assume so. Yeah. But
yeah, it must be.
Yeah, it's just
it wasn't quick, was it? Like traveling like that.
No,
I'm sure.
No, I mean, I guess like it's a little bit different for like flying, because you have to be very rich, I suppose, to own like a plane. But
back then, maybe.
And back then, probably especially, I'd say. But
I think they'd be more scared of the dangers of flying. Though it was certainly not until. Like this time period is when that started happening, wasn't it? When, there was people flying around campaigning for president. Remember there was that guy who was quite famously, I can't remember his name. A really interesting story though. Oh, good.
What happened
I'll remember
to him?
it later.
He died in a plane crash.
No, I just don't think I don't think he won. He just
didn't win.
No, it wasn't.
Fuck you and your planes. No vote. Oh man.
Oh, so here's something I was thinking about the other day. Speaking of Severance, I think Severance's credit sequence, the intro, I should say, is really interesting.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I skip it every time after watching it one time, but
right.
I did like it the first time.
There's an article about the TV theme tune composers complaining about the skip intro button, right? So Netflix has had that feature. This is on the Guardian website. 5 years after the Netflix nuked title sequences, its infamous button is now pressed 136 million times a day. That's how many people skip.
Well, I mean,
intros.
There's certain intros, though, that I would not skip as much, for example. Like the Game of Thrones intro, I used to kind of watch. Yeah, I just thought it was fucking great, man. Like I couldn't get enough of it. Yeah, it was a real belter.
Yeah.
Certain seasons of The Wire as well, I would never skip the intro. Like especially the first season. Like depending on like some of the renditions of the song were not as great as others. Yeah. The first season though is a classic. It just got you so pumped for the episode.
It did. But also a lot of them, it was like a little bit of the show, then it sort of, you hear the music swell for the opening credits and a character looks shocked and you know what's coming in the episode. And it's like a bookend before the show moves to the next scene.
Yeah.
So this guy's saying that skipping it, I'm very against it. TV theme music is incredibly important. It's almost a show's DNA identifier. It serves as an overture to bring you in and sets the tone. Fair. If it's the first episode of a show, fair. Because sometimes you're giving us some hints about what's coming and setting a scene with the opening credits, not just the music, but also the opening credits. I don't need to see it every time.
No.
I'm not that forgetful. No. I can watch it once and be like, okay, I get some idea of what this show's going to be. And now if I'm on season 3 I don't need to watch it. But remind me of the show's DNA identifier again, please. I'm a little confused. No, you don't need to watch it. I'm skipping that shit every time.
Yeah.
Give me the show. I waited a week for this. Give me the show.
I sometimes I skip the previously on as well if there's the option, because especially
as I get more forgetful. I
don't mind it if I'm
that.
watching an episode a week or whatever. Sometimes I'll watch it, but if I'm watching back-to-back episodes,
I find the previously on serves as a good opportunity to quickly turn the light off or on, or draw the curtains, or do all the stuff, because you've set the thing going, and then you realise that you've like, oh shit, I've got to get a drink, or I've got to get this thing, and so the previously on or the title sequence serves as this kind of buffer. It's like before, it's like you're like, are you ready? Okay, yeah, we're all ready. Let's go. And then you're like, oh shit, I've got to do this thing. And then
you know what else it does? It's kind of a big spoiler for the episode, the previously, because they don't just show you a summary of the previous episode.
I agree.
They quite often show you some scene from episode 1. You're like, so that's what that guy is. I bet that he is the guy that took the suitcase in episode 1, and now he's brought it back. And he's the guy driving the great car. Ooh,
there's moments like that, though. The thing is, I haven't watched all of Severance yet. I only watched the first episode. And there's a bit... The thing is, this is my detective brain. I don't know whether this is relevant. The thing is, it could completely be relevant. But there's a bit where like someone just casually mentions that, one of the characters has an allergy to a certain thing. Yeah. And I'm like, that'll come back.
Well, you get to that point with TV shows, right? Because there's very few shows that are going to mention something for no reason, right? Like if you're really listening to like all the dialogue and stuff, somebody says something, you're like, what's the point of even writing that in? Like that's got to come back or mean something later, right? Well, that's
Chekhov's gun, right? Yeah. Why even bother putting a gun on stage if you're not going to shoot it? But and if it's not that, it's a red herring. But it does help to just enhance the mood of or the feel of something with small details. That's the way to get authenticity in, is to have little details that are hard to fake or hard to make up, or you wouldn't think of if you were just imagining it in your head and you didn't have a real experience to draw on. That's how you can tell that these people's, or at least it's one of the ways that we look at trying to tell who's lying and tell who's telling the truth, because of these small little things they know or can draw upon.
Well, listen,
that give it realisticness.
One thing that I do when I'm watching my favorite show, The Apprentice, is the intro sequence for that it's like a supercut like montage of clips of them doing tasks and stuff, right? But not just from the week or previous weeks. It's from the whole thing. So sometimes you're watching that and you'll see them, two of them screaming on a roller coaster, but they haven't done the roller coaster task yet, right? That's not coming for another 4 weeks or whatever.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But you'll see them doing that and you'll be like, okay, hang on. Like, that's not that task. So you kind of know immediately that 2 people aren't getting fired today.
Oh, that's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you can kind of, just from watching it, like week after week after week, you can kind of guess who's gonna.
You're starting to decipher the.
You can figure out who, because like I remember at one point somebody fucked up really bad or something, and my wife is like, "He's out for sure." I was like, "No, he can't be. He's in the fucking roller coaster clip." And she's like, "Oh shit, yeah, he must not be." And sure enough, he didn't go because he survived to the roller coaster task. There's a couple of little clips in there that you can.
There's an even more extreme version of that, which is the original Mission Impossible TV series. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it's a banger. It's very dated, but it is really, really good. In the opening credits for the episode would show you hype moments from the episode you were about to watch.
Right.
So you would see like a little montage of what was coming. And it's like a massive spoiler for the episode, but I guess back then they were like, we gotta keep people watching the TV, otherwise they're gonna miss the adverts for Lucky Strikes, So they sort of tried to tease you into the episode. But it always meant that you kind of knew how they were gonna solve the problem they'd been presented with.
Yeah.
At the very start. It was kind of funny. You don't see that these days.
No, it's a bit weird nowadays, isn't it? There's a lot of there's so much reality TV. Like, I didn't realize just how much there is. And the problem is people can't get enough of it now. from reality TV that's produced in their own country, and I'm guilty of this as well. They actually seek out reality TV from other countries as well. Like it's just this insatiable appetite for reality TV. It's insane. Like if you look on Netflix now, the category for reality TV. Holy crap, there's so many shows, and it's all like The Bachelor, USA, The Bachelor, fucking Madagascar, like all these places that you're like, what? it's pretty funny, but like it's kind of crazy.
Do you think
to
these
think
relationship shows where, because I'm sure that when I was a young man, we had what was that Cilla Black show, the dating one, Blind Date, right?
Oh, Blind Date, yeah.
And I'm sure that's still around.
It's still in some form.
And then that was it. There might have been like there was an old game show called the Newlywed Game.
Yeah.
Where they would say, your husband asks for anal sex. What is your response? And they sort of gave some twee answer, or sometimes they just said, something really smutty. But there weren't shows about like people meeting in that way.
Yeah.
And it's so strange now that these relationship shows, they're fucking everywhere. Like Love at First Sight or whatever. There's a first
Love at First Sight. There's
a first dates one where they film people having
first
a date.
Dates. There's like a restaurant, right, that they go to and they just do all the filming there.
And then you've got like Married at First Sight, you've got The Bachelor,
Naked
Love Island is
Attraction.
essentially...
Have you seen Naked Attraction?
Naked Attraction, all of these.
Yeah.
So when did that shift come where now we just want to see relationships? Do you think it's because it's harder to meet people, so we're doing it vicariously? Or because we like laughing at other people's dreadful... I mean, there should be one where you just see people going on Tinder dates.
I think the first one that I remember, really sort of reality show was probably like Survivor in North America.
I never watched that. I never ever watched that.
I don't know if it became popular over here or not. Because I think like the UK is funny, right? Like it exports a lot of formats, but it doesn't import a lot of formats. Like they're usually quite good.
I don't know if that's true.
I'd say it exports far more than it imports. Like,
I think we do export quite a lot, but I think a lot of the stuff that we think is original is actually an imported format. I mean, like The Masked Singer is a prime example.
Sure,
that's quite a popular show. That's a Korean show.
There's plenty of shows that start here and then make their way, or like I know like the BBC sells a lot of formats like to America.
I don't even
Canada.
know if The Apprentice is an original.
No, I think
show.
The Apprentice was originally devised in the US as well. I think that's one of the few that's come over from the US specifically.
So that was the American original with old fucking
with Donald Trump
face himself.
Yeah.
And then
that
like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire
was
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was is it Endemol?
Yeah, it was UK, yeah.
So that was their big one, I think, because that went everywhere.
I'm pretty sure Big Brother was UK as well, I think. Or maybe it was actually no, it was in Netherlands, right? That was the first Big Brother was made in the Netherlands,
that was Dutch.
And it was Endemol
Dutch
as well. Yeah,
that was Endemol. I think they might be a Dutch company.
Endemol make a ton of shit, by the way. Like they like Pointless. They make like
it's just they've just got
like most of the TV game shows
of mindless idiots just coming up with dumb
BV
stuff
was a
for dumb people.
Dutch-based company.
Yeah,
and then they were merged into Endemol Shine Group, a joint venture between Disney and someone else.
Yeah.
So now it's just a name only. But these are their shows. These are their franchises.
Strictly
Big Brother,
Come Dancing,
Deal or No Deal,
like
Fear
The
Factory,
Voice,
Wipeout.
like, all these shows like Dragon's Den. I'm pretty sure all of these like formats and concepts are like exported.
Dude, listen to these shows that they came up with. Big Brother, Deal or No Deal, Fear Factory, Wipeout, The Money Drop, Your Face Sounds Familiar, which I've never heard of. What the hell is Your Face Sounds Familiar? That's a Spanish interactive reality television franchise where celebrity contestants impersonate singers. And that's very similar to the Dutch TV series Sound Mix Show, which was first used in Spain, apparently. So,
nice.
What on earth? God, this is
like The Masked Singer.
This is everywhere.
Yeah,
there's an Angolan version of this show.
I know they like the formats just go out to all these other countries and they just make their own version. But then you can watch all of those versions on Netflix. Like if you've exhausted your supply of local ones, you could just go out and watch all the other ones too. And some of them are pretty good. Like Married at First Sight, I don't even watch the UK one. I only watch the Australian one because it's so juicy.
Right. This is such channel surfing crap. So there's this thing, right, called myretrotvs.com, right, which I can link to you now. Basically, it's like this website where you can just type in any year. So like 77, like you can get to like 77, and it'll bring up like a TV and it'll just play 7 TV shows and music and movies and
commercials
that came
and
out
stuff
in that year. Commercials, and like shopping channels and all this crap. And you could just channel hop your way through that era. And it's so fucking weird. I was playing with it yesterday, and it's just like you could just enjoy this bygone era of crap. And even like 20 years ago, like even like the 2000s TV, it's fucking dated. It's not aged
early
well.
2000s was jivey as fuck, man. Like if you look back and you see, like I was watching, I think it was Mariah Carey at the BBC. Like they do this every once in a while, like some big performer, whatever, gets like a hour and a half slot where they show all of the Top of the Pops appearances, all of like the big collabs, all their big number ones, the videos and everything. And she did that Phil Collins song with, I think it was like Boyzone or Westlife or something in like 2001. Man, it just like the clothes, everything were so bad, like worse than the 90s, like far worse than the 90s. Like you look back to the 80s and 90s and you look at the fashion and the clothing and stuff, it's pretty bad. But early 2000s was the worst. Like, I don't know what the hell people were thinking. It's just awful. Like, I can't even explain some of the decisions. Like, I'm not a big fashion person. Like, I know I just wear shorts every day and stuff, but like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's just tried, tested, and true. Like you're always just gonna kind of look like shit, but these people were making some sort of effort and still just looked like shit, like it's crazy. I don't know, like lots of fucking chains and like frosted tip hairdos and like, oh man, it's depressing kind of looking back on some of that stuff.
The 90s looks so cheap compared to now, honestly.
I know.
When you look at even TV shows and movies and the things that people were wearing, I don't remember 90s fashion just seems to be like pretty hilariously. It's post 80s. The 80s fashion was so iconic. In the 90s, we didn't really know what we were doing. We hadn't found a vibe yet, I guess. I mean, a lot of it
was a lot of colorful stuff.
Yeah,
though,
there was.
Wasn't it? It was like colorful, colorful
very
shapes.
Early 90s, there was like a lot of like the dance scene was developing a lot more, right?
That was a big part of it, yeah.
So you had like
neon and stuff.
Lots of neons, but I don't know if you remember those. They were button-up shirts that were like checkered, but big checkers. So like,
oh yeah, like lumberjack shirts was a big thing, like that style.
Well, like like going into like grunge and stuff, plaid. But I'm talking about like big checkered shirts. Like you have like 2 black squares and 2 white squares on the front of a buttoned up shirt. You know what I mean?
You know what? That's very Saved by the Bell is the 90s.
Yeah,
sort of
that was very much. It was just
wore.
coming out of the 80s, going into the 90s, and I remember those being all the rage. Right? You'd wear that, and you would go to like a discotheque and go dancing or whatever. Like, yeah.
Shall we go dancing at the discotheque? I have my big check shirt and
it felt
a mustache.
Like the 90s started like that and then became very, very grimy, like, or at least for me anyway, because I listened to like a lot of grunge and metal, and then transitioned into listening to a lot of hip hop from the 90s, and like fashion was a huge thing for hip hop in the 90s. I'm sure it is.
Huge coats.
Yeah, big pants, big coats, like Timberlands, like Tommy Hilfiger, like all like the big brands, right, that everybody was wearing. So it was like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you look back and it probably feels a bit jivey now, but at the time it was pretty cool. Like, and
it did feel cool at the time.
You were aware.
That's pretty much the way it is, though.
Yeah, I suppose.
But I mean, now I think I spoke about this the other week about the bland colors available, especially to men. It's black, blue, brown, gray.
Yeah,
that's it. There's very little variation. I tweeted I went to a clothes shop. I was looking for some t-shirts and shirts and things, And those were the colors on offer. Various hues of those 4 colors. Not even like primary colors we could get interested, like nothing. Just bland. It's like we're trying to camouflage ourselves from the world. And I really hope that there is a move towards color in men's clothing. I can't speak about women's clothing. Mrs. F seems to get some nice stuff. The kids wear some nice stuff. Like, I'm genuinely jealous of the amount of color and vibrancy that there is in women's clothes.
Yeah.
Because in men's, it's fucking miserable.
Genuinely. I've got a couple of red t-shirts. I got a bright yellow t-shirt.
I'm wearing a green one now, but you try finding a green fucking t-shirt.
Beautiful shade of blue t-shirt, a couple of them. I got some grays and blacks and whites, of course, but I haven't struggled too much to find colorful clothes.
In your own, by your own admission, you just wear shorts and any t-shirt.
Yeah,
like I'm talking about, go to a shop, especially a high street fashion shop, and try to find something not in those 4 colors.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be the fucking guy in the red suit with the fucking bow tie and the fucking top hat.
Not the bow tie.
Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, you also, if you're the only beacon of color, you know, that's not going to attract other people who are colourful. The problem is going to be, you'll have to look at everyone else. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to look at my own ugly face unless I see a mirror or accidentally, you know, look into a shop window, or my switch turns off, you know, and I see I'm confronted by the grim reality of aging. But, you know, it's mostly other people who I need colour from.
This reminds me of a book that I read to my kids sometimes called Elmer the Elephant. He's like, he's an elephant that's not gray like the other ones. All the other elephants are gray and kind of boring. But Elmer is patchwork, like all the colors of the rainbow.
Sounds to me like one of them gay conspiracy books. They're trying to get that idea into our kids' minds and turn them gay.
Yeah, well, anyway, so what Elmer decides to do, this is interesting.
I guarantee you someone wants that book back. This is clearly an allegory for homosexuality. Get this book off my kid's shelf.
That's such a Republican viewpoint, people.
So, dude, that's happening right now.
Okay, but listen to this.
Going through books looking for like any hint of gayness and trying to burn them.
Well, Elmer tries to hide his gayness in the story, in the original story. He finds some berries that are gray, and he smothers himself in these berries to camouflage his patchwork or to hide his patchwork. So he becomes gray just like all the other elephants.
Right.
He rejoins the herd, and all the other elephants are just like sleeping and stuff, you know, they're not paying any attention or whatever. And Elmer just can't fucking contain himself, and he scares all of them, and then they wash him off, and the patchwork, and then he realizes that everybody likes him for who he is because of his personality and not because of the color of his skin. And
see, at that point the lesson falls apart, because telling people be comfortable in your own skin and be who you are is a great message.
Yeah,
but then also telling them people will accept you for that is a lie.
Well, listen,
they will not.
They go
you
one
have
further,
to fight
though.
against assholes the rest of your life. I'm very sorry.
We can be hopeful, though. It's a hopeful message.
They go a step further with Elmer, because then they decide from that day forward, because he scared them and gave them all such a good chuckle through doing that. It was a really good prank. That day annually is celebrated, and all of the gray elephants dress up like in patchwork.
A kind of a pride march
for
elephant?
Elmer, yeah. But then Elmer does the opposite. He dresses up like a gray elephant.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
So how does that
I'm not sure I understand that message. Yeah. It's a complex thing to unpack.
It is.
It is at the end of the day a children's book.
Here's why I think Republicans are so determined that book is clearly trying to turn kids gay. I remember when my kids were younger. I'm not saying.
By the way, we don't know if this is the case.
No, I'm just saying. I can imagine.
We just assume that there's some cunt in America trying to shut down Elmer the elephant.
Just in case you think
it's making our kids all gay.
That we actually believe what we're saying. We don't. It's just
for the
just a
purposes
funny
of
notion.
This discussion, all right?
But
there is a book called The Little Red Hen. It's like a children's classic. And my dad sent it to the girls. It's the only book he's ever sent them. when they were younger and was like, oh, you should read this to them. It's a classic. Now, I remember this book when I was a kid. If you don't remember the story, here's the rundown. The Little Red Hen.
Okay, just to brief you, it's from 1874.
Well, a lot of these old stories are, though. They're all old fairy tales.
So the Little Red Hen...
That does mean it could be dangerous, though.
No, it's not. It's not racist or anything like that.
Okay, thank God.
Okay, don't worry. So the Little Red Hen works industriously hard, and she gets all this food ready, and she's very industrious and hardworking. And all the other lazy animals are trying to take her. Can they say, can you share some of that because you've got loads? And she's like, no, I worked really hard for all this. You don't get any of it. My dad loves this book because it fulfills his libertarian idea.
Yeah, it sounds very anti-communist.
But it's like it was written pre-communism. Like communism did not exist. Just the idea of sharing was so bad that they had to write a children's book about it. So the extremely successful entrepreneurial Red Hen makes all this bank. And God forbid, anybody that wants to share, of course, all the animals that say we should really share this around so it can help other people, they're just lazy. And they literally are in the story. They're all just lying around going, the Red Hen will do all the work for us. It's like that super conservative vision of what the unemployed are. They're just lazy, greedy, selfish bastards who don't want to help the Red Hen.
And most of these people have inherited wealth in the first place. Like none of them have actually gone out and fucking generated wealth themselves.
Yeah,
they're
she
fucking
had a small
so
loan
stupid.
of 1,000 eggs from her father, and she managed to start a chicken farm. It's just a small loan. Why aren't you doing it, Mr. Fox? So it's... Like, I'm like, this is not a totally unsubtle message to prepare kids that this is the way to do things, that anybody who wants a handout is a lazy bastard. That message is a core part of conservative sort of thinking, to my view, of that kind of social contract, if you like. So my dad sent this book over, clearly trying to indoctrinate my kids.
Yeah.
And I caught this because I recognized it straight away.
To educate your children on the importance of hard work, personal initiative, and the fact that you're better than the rest of them.
And that the poor people deserve to be poor because they're lazy.
Because they're lazy.
So as soon as I unwrapped this, I called my dad. I was like, I know what you're trying to do. And he was just laughing. He was like, straight away. He knew that I would know. So I binned it off straight away.
Really?
And I binned it, of course.
It's quite funny
bullshit.
because you'd think the Red Hen would be something like a warning for children. Warning, this Red Hen is one that shares with other communists. You don't want to do that. They're lazy and they'll take your eggs. The stupid Red Hen and all the other Reds trying to come into our country and take it for themselves, like they deserve it. Their father had owned that country for hundreds of years. We weren't going to take it away and give it to someone who just, didn't inherit it. They made people...
Exactly.
It's the whole thing. Yeah.
Fucking
That's it. But so maybe they always see indoctrination in books because they've been doing it since the 19th century.
Well, I think there's a very thin line between indoctrination and education, right? Like, you've got to teach your kids about, you could, in many ways, you could say that Elmer the elephant is indoctrinating kids to be tolerant, right? And, and understand that people are diverse and worth your respect regardless of the color of their skin. In many ways, you could use that, these words are not... we choose to educate our kids a certain way nowadays. I think indoctrination is obviously is considered bad. Yeah. And I think that as the times change, that line changes and changes. Certainly I think that even in modern times, I don't think that a lot of people would have a lot of criticism with that idea, right? That book.
What do you think?
I think
what do you think about it? Like resonates though. Like thinking about it right now, if I was read Elmer the Elephant when I was a kid, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here right now at 41 years old looking back and thinking, yeah, there's a lesson there or whatever, like my day-to-day life
I think it all goes in.
It's got to be some sort of like you get read something like that and you can just, I don't know, in your mind, like find another way or something. Like it's kind of hard to explain, but like I don't feel like specifically that book would have a huge impact. But I
don't think the book would specifically, but I think what happens when kids read this stuff, for a start, it all goes in.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And
it's all in their subconsciously. Sure, they don't understand the heavy-handed metaphor that, is to represent, people who are, have a different skin color and aren't being, treated properly today. But I think that it does. It all stacks up, you know.
But honestly, I think more than just it going in, I think in a way it primes their brain. Then when they have an interaction in real life that sort of solidifies this view or counters this view or whatever, that it's all just like until you've had a real life experience, I don't think that reading a book as a kid is going to genuinely change who you are.
No.
I think that, but it might help to inform and shape how you view a real life experience.
Absolutely.
And that turns into a personality.
Even from a very simple way, like, you know, they're different to me. That's okay. You know, it's not, they're different to me. We should expel them from the country.
But I don't think, like,
kill them.
Do kids really even think that way, though? Like, maybe I'm just being naive here, but I can't imagine that kids have preloaded that much hatred in them. You know what I mean?
You'd be surprised.
No, they don't. They don't.
But you'd be surprised how much culture and education and things that we've got. Like, if I was a priest, God forbid, right now, and I was teaching
different podcast.
And I was teaching, you know, people or kids lines from the Bible, and I didn't know I think I'd be constantly confronted by messages that are wrong or out of date or just like completely counter to what we consider modern, you know. And I think I would have to be constantly being like, oh God, I don't really even want to teach people so much. I'd have to be so selective over which passages I taught people, right? I think that and the problem is that these cultural things, these stories, these books that your parents read, they give them to their kids, they give them to their grandkids, they still teach them, and these messages still get through, right? Because those people didn't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that, or they didn't quite understand what they were doing, or they didn't understand that these metaphors can lead to more problems. I think this is a classic thing where you could see that, you know, the diversity is still problematic in society, because you ask, I remember this from a while ago, but you ask sort of little kids, you know, which of the dolls is the good doll and which of the dolls is the bad doll. Yeah. And they'll point to the black doll as being the bad doll, because we still perceive that there's something, you know, something naughty or bad about, you know, there's still this cultural insensitivity that's built in and scared, and people are scared of people who are different, right? Yeah. Because, you know, the minority people are always going to be feared. And I don't know whether it's in our genetics, but we do have to fight it, and it's ways like, you know, small ways like this sort of books, I guess, that help do that from an early age. Yeah, you're right. I think it primes.
Do you guys remember being read to as a child? Like, I don't really.
A couple of times.
I don't really remember being read to all that much at all. Like, I remember being read to at school, like at a very young age, but I don't remember having regular like bedtime stories and stuff as a kid.
I don't remember being read to at school, but there are a few books. There's one called Dogger, which was about a kid that he lived in North London, and he lost his toy dog.
Right. Again, this would not be okay today.
What?
Dogger?
That's the name of the dog. Oh, you mean like dogging?
Yeah.
Right, but I don't think anybody would call themselves a dogger.
Well, like, maybe. You never know.
I don't think they would.
What else are you going to call yourself?
A doggy? Someone who is dog? One who is dog? I don't know. But either way, it's called Dogger is the name of the book. And the kid loses his toy dog, and he sees it for sale at a jumble sale, right. And another girl buys it, and he's in tears, and she wants to keep it, and they manage to find something else to give her in trade to get Dogger back, and he's very happy. I loved this book as a kid, and I distinctly remember my mum reading me those,
right,
and Richard Scarry books.
Yeah, I had Richard Scarry books, but I don't remember anybody reading them to me. Like
I remember my mum reading them to me, and we would always look for certain characters. The gold bug, who would appear on every page, he was like a little gold bug,
yeah, who
would be driving something, and the worm, whose name I've forgotten. But I remember all of these characters, and just I remember particular pages. That oddly enough, one of the books I remember, my parents are both atheists. was Noah's Ark, the book. And I loved it because it had animals in it. It is, it had all these animals. And there was this one page where you'd open up like the double spread in the middle, and you could see the ark with all the animals on. And I would be on that page for like 5 minutes, just looking at all the animals and pointing them out.
Oh, for kids, that shit is great, right? But it's weird because I do all this shit with my kids. I read them every day, like every night, like without fail. We read books to them before they go to bed, or we play like a board game, or there's something like we do something. But I don't remember having any of that like growing up. Like me,
we watched some telly.
Yeah, we watched TV basically until we fell asleep. It felt like.
Right.
I don't know if that's the same for anybody else.
I remember the Muppet Show was what I watched when that was on.
Yeah,
I got to stay up extra late to watch that. Oh, can I just say I found something really funny. This is a little more Red Hen, just very quickly. There have been some revisions and different versions of the Red Hen. So politically themed versions of the story include a conservative version, ultra-conservative version, I'd say, based on a 1976 monologue from Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
This version features a farmer who claims that the hen is being unfair by refusing to share the bread and forces her to do so, removing the hen's incentive to work and causing poverty to befall the farm.
No,
That's incredible.
God, man.
Yeah.
Another version...
That just assumes that, that's how it works.
It assumes that there is but one worker, and they're the industrious red hen, and everyone else is just a lazy bastard. That's Ronald Reagan's version. As if you tax people, you remove their incentive to work. What? Fuck off. Another version satirizes capitalism by depicting the hen promising the animals slices of bread if they make it, but keeping the largest slice for herself despite not doing any work. I like that one.
That's more like it.
Right, and a version by Malvina Reynolds adapts the story into a pro-work socialist anthem as the hen retains the fruits of her labor, saying, and that's why they called her Red. So you're right, they made a version where the little red hen is like the little communist hen. That's just hilarious. But see, that's the thing. It is clearly there's a hidden message in the little.
I like the capitalist version where you know she becomes the sort of the overlord of the farm,
factory
gets the biggest slice of the pie,
keeps all the other animals in a
still
slum.
ends up doing nothing, right? So ultimately, she is the lazy one who gets the most,
and all her chicks inherit the bread making factory and keep the other
and
animals.
they can be lazy cunts their whole life.
Oh my God, man!
Just do cocaine in the penthouse while all the
zooming
other
around
animals
in their sports cars, running over the other animals, and then the farmer, aka the system, lets them off because they're rich. That would be a good version of the Red Hen.
That would be great. Let's write that down. Oh. So what do you think makes a good children's book? Like apart from I feel like any messages that go in there, I feel like should be.
I think a lot of them just rely on repeat formulas, right? Like,
what age are we talking here?
I mean, in a sense, kids? I don't really want any politics in children's books. In a sense, right? I don't feel like we should have any of these controversial things, right? It should just be fun stuff.
My kids really like Mr. Men books, which now have become a little bit. Like there's some discussion about how they're a little bit problematic at times or whatever. But
I can imagine Mr. Tickle, Jesus,
Mr. Men books follow the same formula more or less, right? And it's just it's like a way to teach people how to behave nicely or whatever, right? Because there's always, I'd say for the most part. I'd say 7 times out of 10 in a Mr. Men book, one of the characters, the lead characters, the Mr. Men or the little miss, will meet some sort of fairy or goblin or something in their garden, and then after misbehaving, and then the fairy or goblin or whatever will do something to them to punish them for misbehaving, and say to them, next time you misbehave, this is going to happen to you again, basically until you start behaving properly, right? So So
do you think the Mr. Men books are about conformity?
I guess so, yeah.
Many of the Mr. Men are actually deformed. They've got serious problems.
For example, and Mr. Uppity.
It's very judgy. It's very judgy, the book. So Mr. Nosy, he's got a big nose, very judgy.
Yeah.
But how can he get his comeuppance?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess you're saying it's impossible not to put some sort of
prank
message
Mr.
in.
Nosy, right? for being so nosy. He's being so nosy that he annoys everybody in the town that he lives in, right? From being so nosy. So all of the residents of the town get together. There's no goblin or fairy in this one. This is just the residents of the town getting together. They all get together to sort of teach him a lesson, right? So Mr. Nosy's walking down the road. He hears something in a backyard. He pokes his nose into the backyard, and then he gets like a clothespin on his nose, and it hurts. But the woman has done it on purpose, right? She's made the noise on purpose so that he will be nosy, and then she could put the clothespin on his nose to like startle him. And so like, and this goes on, right? He's walking past like he's like the furniture maker of the town or whatever. He hears some noise. He pokes his nose in, and he gets a hammer on the nose. And this like 3 or 4 times this happens, and then in the end, he's less nosy because he knows his nose is gonna get splashed with paint or run over by a car or some shit if he's too nosy, right? And then everybody's like, "Hooray, we love Mr. Nosy! Like he's not being as nosy anymore." And that's it. That's the whole story. Like Mr. Men books are like 5 pages long. Like they're okay.
But
like they're.
Don't you find that there is
whatever.
lots of text?
Yeah.
There is a lot of text in Mr. Men books.
Yeah,
like if you pick one up and have a look. It's a lot more than a lot of modern books, which have like one sentence.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking up Mr. Tickle.
Yeah.
And it's in a bunch of different languages. Some of them obviously. So it's Monsieur Chatouille in French.
Oh.
And in Spanish it's Don Cosquillas.
I feel like Mr. Tickle is, I don't know, maybe he's not the most problematic one, but I would imagine that was certainly the message of Mr. Tickle is a dangerous one.
Mr. Tickle gets owned by Little Miss Magic at one point because Mr. Tickle goes on a tickling rampage, tickles the whole town. Everybody gets super mad. And you know there's problems when Mr. Happy turns up at your front door and he's not happy, right?
Yeah, you fucked up.
So Little Miss
you
Magic
fucked up.
teaches him a lesson. She puts a magical spell on him to shrink his arms so that he can't tickle anymore. And this makes Mr. Tickle miserable, right? Like just
no fucking wonder
he cannot fucking tickle anymore.
Just been mutilated.
So he spends
magic.
a couple of pages of the book not being able to tickle, and then he goes back to Little Miss Magic's house one day and says, "Please, can I just have my tickling arms back?" And she says, "Okay, but you can only do 1 tickle a day, otherwise your arms go back to being short again." He says, "I promise." And then so she makes his arms long again. He leaves the house and he decides to use his 1 tickle of the day on Little Miss Magic, and that's how the book ends.
Revenge.
This is not a good message.
In German, he's Unser Herr Kille Kille. I don't know if Kille Kille is how you say tickle in German, but it's also in Swedish and Danish. In Sweden, it's Guben Kille Kill. I don't know if they go Kille Kille Kille. That's how you do
But
tickling.
listen, this is fascinating. Another thing that Mr. Men books love to do, another format that they rely on, is if it's not bad behavior, it's an incompatibility or inability to work. That's another very popular theme in Mr. Men.
Right.
So like Mr. Greedy gets a job at the supermarket, but then he gets fired because he can't stop eating everything. And then Mr. Greedy gets a job at a restaurant and he gets fired because he can't stop eating like all the food that he's serving.
Right.
And this goes on and on and on until somehow
finally he finds a job that is not in the food industry.
or Mr. Happy or somebody with a clue figures, hang on a second, I got the perfect job for Mr. Greedy, and he becomes like a hot dog taste tester or some shit, right? Mr. Quiet gets a job at the library.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
Why didn't he just become like a librarian or something, or any other job?
Little Miss Late gets a job being a housemaid for Mr. Lazy because she's so late. She turns up at like 4 p.m., but that's when Mr. Lazy wakes up every day. So it works out. You know what I mean? But she's been fired from every other job because she can't get there on time. Like this is another huge.
That's her defining character.
Yeah, this is another huge sort of format for Mr. Men books as well. I'm not compatible with this job, but they'll find me the perfect one eventually. It's like it goes. There's like 2 or 3 possible ways for a Mr. Men or Little Miss book to go, and those I feel like I've done a really good job of outlining them as well.
Well done.
So,
no, I think you have.
if you don't want to ever
job.
read any of those books, just know that they're only going to go one of those 3 ways, and you've pretty much read them all.
Yeah, I think that's all it needs to be, right?
Yeah. But man, goddamn, if my kids don't fucking love them, like even
I loved them
my
when I was a
10-year-old still every day we read them. He loves them. Like they're just, I don't know. There's something about them. They're just kind of like endearing books. You know, I get that maybe they're not super politically correct, or maybe
they are not.
Maybe some of the
at the same time,
some of the characters.
You just got to couch it a little. Just got to tell the kids.
Yeah,
I think you just got to
cool.
be careful. Yeah, I think.
Just don't tickle people unless they're cool with it.
Yeah.
Just scan it before you read it out, especially if it's older than 20 years.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. That's some top advice from Dad.
There you go. If you ever needed some top advice, you now have it.
There you go.
Yeah.
What a brilliant podcast. We'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody. See you then.
Peace.
Goodbye.